Lay down and relax. I shall read to you. Ah, there you are again, little human. You return with that quiet curiosity in your eyes. The same look your kind carries when standing before something ancient or mysterious. Or me. Tonight I have 4 more tales for you. Wonders forged by the hands of monks, hermits, astronomers, and weavers, each one a thread pulled from the hidden corners of your medieval past. I have brushed the dust from them and warmed them gently beneath my fire, so they may glow for you now. We will begin with a candle that dared to burn against time itself. Then wander into a French valley, where grief learned how to sing. Climb to a mountain observatory, where silence spoke in a single, flawless chime. And visit a weaver, whose loom tugged at the invisible threads of fate. Settle yourself. Gather your blankets, unless, of course, you would prefer I warm the room for you. Let your breathing slow. Let your thoughts soften. For I am here once more, guiding you through the quiet marvels your ancestors left scattered across the centuries, and perhaps leading you toward dreams waiting just beyond your reach. Chapter 1. The Candle That Burned Backwards. In a monastery near Krakow, there once burned a candle that defied its own nature. It consumed itself from both ends, 2 flames racing toward the center. The monks swore that when the flames met, time hesitated. I've met time. It usually hurries past dragons, but perhaps a candle convinced it to pause. Brother Dominic crafted it, an eccentric chemist long before the world had a name for such minds. He believed flame unveiled the soul of matter, and so he built a candle with mirrored wicks and a hollow core of silvered oil. When both ends were lit, the flames crept toward one another, until they merged in a moment of perfect, trembling symmetry. Dominic called it a symbol of mortality, life closing in on itself. But soon strange things occurred. Clocks slowed, ink refused to dry. A caged bird sang only at night. The monks whispered that the candle bent the hours backward. Fearing blasphemy, or perhaps fearing their own curiosity, they buried the candle in salt and prayer. Centuries later, it was rediscovered, hardened into a rod of pale crystal, still faintly warm. Scientists found alternating layers of resin and silver, materials capable of storing heat for centuries, but the warmth exceeded all explanation. When placed in a sealed box, the temperature rose, as if the candle was remembering itself burning. Now the relic rests in Krakow behind glass. Though unlit, visitors swear they smell beeswax and smoke, Some say memories sharpen near it, as though time chooses, briefly, to turn around. Dominic's creation was not miracle, only accident, yet it taught the monks what dragons have whispered for ages. Time is not a river, but a circle, where every ending rushes to greet its beginning. Chapter 2. The Forest of Bells. Deep in a forgotten French valley, one even dragons seldom bother to fly over. Fog hangs close to the ground, like a sleeping cloak, and the birds grow quiet, as if listening for something older than their own songs. There stands a strange grove, a forest not only of trees, but of rusting bells. They dangle from every branch, small and large, cracked and whole, hundreds of them, their metal mouths green with moss and thyme. The wind threads through them like a patient musician, never quite forming a melody, never surrendering to silence. I have glided above that valley and heard it, a music half breath, half memory. The villagers call it the Forest of Bells. They say it was planted by a monk named Guillaume, the lone survivor of an abbey burned to ash. When he returned to the ruins, he gathered what remained of the great church bells and the soldiers' weapons, melted, twisted, useless for war. From those broken metals he forged new chimes, each smaller than the last, one for every life lost. He carried them into the valley and hung them from the trees, surrendering them to the mercy of wind and weather. A dragon might have built a hoard from so much metal. Guillaume built a choir. At first, the bells rang bright and clear. Their voices chimed like clean water over stone. But as years passed, rust thickened on their flanks, deepening their tones. The forest no longer sang. It murmured, low and continuous, like a slow, unending prayer. The villagers grew afraid. They said the bells were whispering the names of the dead. Centuries turned. Botanists, those curious gardeners of reason, came to study the place. They found that the constant vibrations had shaped the trees themselves, trunks subtly twisted in rhythm, branches curved toward the prevailing tone. As if the forest had been listening for so long, it began to lean into the sound. Science described frequencies and growth patterns, nodding at the mystery with careful words. But it could not explain the peace. Those who walk beneath the bells speak of a calm that settles in their bones, of sorrow loosening like a knot finally untied. The sound is not haunting. It is forgiving. Guillaume, the monk who lost everything, had taken grief, hot, shapeless, unbearable, and cooled it into metal, then handed it over to the wind. He turned mourning into an instrument. Today the bells ring rarely. They sleep most days, wrapped in moss and memory. But when a storm sweeps the valley, and the wind gathers its courage, the forest awakens. The air fills with 1,000 fragile notes, rising and falling like breath. Too wild to be a hymn, too gentle to be a lament. In that sound, if you listen with a heart as old as mine, you can almost hear what Guillaume discovered. That memory, when allowed to move freely, becomes music instead of pain. Chapter 3. The Astronomer's Silent Bell. High in the snow-bitten mountains beyond Aragon stood a lonely stone outpost, where an astronomer named Isandro kept watch over the sky. He was a quiet man, thin as a quill and twice as precise. His observatory held no clock, no hourglass, no chime, only a small bronze bell hanging from a wooden beam. It never rang. That, he said, was the point. Isandro believed the sky spoke intention, not sound. When the world holds its breath, he wrote, the heavens rearrange themselves. So he built an instrument with a single purpose, to measure silence. He stretched a web of the thinnest bronze wires across the observatory, connecting rafters, walls, and lantern hooks in a layered lattice. In the center hung the bell. When the wind rose, the wires trembled inaudibly. When storms gathered, they hummed. When shepherds lit bonfires in distant valleys, the shifting heat made the wires quiver. Isandro charted every vibration, then marked its absence. What fascinated him most were the nights when the wires did not stir at all. Just before dawn on the winter solstice, he witnessed his life's mystery. The sky above the mountains froze into impossible stillness. Not a gust, not a tremor, not a flicker of heat disturbed the wires. Then, softly, the bell rang. It chimed only once. A single note so pure it seemed to peel open the dark. The next morning, Isandro was found asleep at his desk, ink frozen on the tip of his quill. He wrote no explanation, only a diagram of the mountain sky, and a single line beneath it. Silence is the sound of the world remembering itself. Centuries later, scholars rebuilt his web of bronze wire. Under perfect conditions, only at high altitude, on the longest night, they too heard the faintest chime. Some say it is caused by temperature, others by shifting ice, others by resonance. I know better. The sky keeps secrets, and once in a very long while, it allows one to slip free. Chapter 4. The Weaver of Thousand Threads. In a small village near the Dalmatian coast lived a weaver named Elira, whose tapestries drew travelers from kingdoms away. Her cottage smelled of sea salt and wool, and the wooden floor was forever dusted in threads of red, gold, and moon-white. Villagers said she could weave stories into cloth, but the truth was stranger. Elira believed every life left a trail, an invisible thread that tangled with the world around it. She claimed she could feel these threads when she touched her loom. Some are warm, she said, some are heavy, some are sharp, but none are silent. Her loom was unlike any other, half wood, half hammered bronze, strung with strings of plant fiber, horsehair, and something she refused to name. When she worked, the air around her shimmered faintly, as if the threads themselves remembered sunlight. Elira never took commissions. She waited until the right traveler passed her door, then asked permission to weave their story. Most agreed. A few refused, unsettled by the weight in her gaze. When a tapestry was finished, she hung it in her cottage for one night only. At dawn she folded it, wrapped it in linen, and handed it to the traveler. "Your path is clearer now," she always said. "Go where the threads pull you." Years passed. Wars rose and fell. Roads shifted. Borders broke. But Elira wove on. One stormy night, a sailor arrived at her cottage. His past was scarred, his future tangled. When she touched the loom, the strings shivered violently. Colors darkened. The cottage groaned as if swallowing wind. At dawn, she did not fold the tapestry. She stared at it in silence. For the first time in her life, she refused to hand it over. When the villagers checked on her later that morning, the loom was still humming, but Elira was gone. Only her last tapestry remained hanging from the beam. Its threads glowed faintly, shifting like water, swirling into a pattern no one had ever seen. Scholars now call it the map of unchosen paths. They claim the tapestry shows every future the sailor might have lived, and perhaps futures that never belonged to humans at all. As for where Elira went, I have my suspicions. Some threads do not end. They simply vanish into the weave of the world. And so, small traveler, our journey through these four wonders comes gently to its end. You have watched flames race toward one another as time hesitated. You have walked beneath rust-laden bells that turned mourning into music. You have stood in a mountain-top stillness so perfect that a silent bell dared to speak. And you have witnessed a weaver vanish into a tapestry of futures that never were. You have wandered far tonight, farther than most humans manage in waking hours. Your mind must be weary, your spirit softened. It is time to rest. Let the stories settle in you like warm ash drifting across a quiet hearth. Let the night unfold around you like wings. Let sleep rise slow and gentle, as it does in my own lair, when the world finally stops stirring. I will be here when next you return, with more secrets tucked beneath my scales, more forgotten marvels carried through the centuries. Until then, breathe deeply. dream softly, and sleep safely under a dragon's watch. Good night, humans.